this moment, or Why I Cannot Mourn Gaza, written by myself, ayoub, on Hauntologies.net on January 20th, 2025, and read by myself as well. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was supposed to start at 08:30 a.m. local time, January 19th, 2025. It was delayed by 3 hours, as Hamas took longer than planned to release the names of the 3 Israelis who would be released as part of the ceasefire deal. Netanyahu took advantage, and in those final 3 hours after the official ceasefire started, his forces killed 19 Palestinians. This is the victory that Israel can now add to its long list of victories. This is the victory that Israel is now haunted by, one so grim, so devastating it may as well have been the most abject of defeats. At least with defeat, you do not need to ask yourself what to do with victory. That is the victor's curse. Those final bombs over Gaza killed 16 and 6-year-old Adli and Sama al-Qidra, in addition to their father Ahmad, who was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. 12-year-old Yasmin dragged her 8-year-old sister Asil before a second Israeli missile hit the same spot that had already killed their loved ones. A 12-year-old had the forethought to drag her younger sister immediately after witnessing 3 loved ones killed, because she knew that Israel often deployed their infamous double tap strikes, whereby they bomb, wait a bit, and then bomb again. Yasmin knew it was time to run away as fast and as far as possible because she was 10 or 11 years old when Israel started its genocide, and 15 months are more than enough to understand the pattern of death and destruction unleashed by that genocidal state. I cannot mourn the dead of Gaza yet because it is not over. I am struck by it even as I write these words, but I do not know anyone who believes that the Israelis are done with bombing Gaza. Why would they be? They now have 15 months of evidence of how much they can get away with, which is to say almost everything. I cannot mourn Gaza because this death and destruction was committed by an Israeli government backed by the ostensibly center-left Biden administration, the one that trampled over as many international and even American laws as they could to secure over $17.9 billion of American taxpayer money in military aid to Israel. This is not to mention protecting Israel diplomatically all over the world to make sure that Netanyahu had everything he needed to kill as many Palestinians as he could until the very last minute, and then for 3 more hours after that. They did that despite the ICJ, ICC, multiple UN special rapporteurs and their reports, and virtually all human rights organizations from Amnesty to Human Rights Watch to B'Tselem. More data has been compiled on Israel's deliberate targeting of Palestinian civilian infrastructure than has ever been technologically possible before 2023. And yet all that the Biden administration opted to do with this information was to choose to become an active participant in the Gaza genocide. This effectively makes Biden himself the single most lethal killer of Palestinian children as far as American presidents go. At least so far. So how do I celebrate this ceasefire? I am relieved that Palestinians are able, at least for some time, at least for now, to stop running for their lives. I also feel angry, to be honest, because we know what the Israelis mean by ceasefire. They imbue this word with as much meaning as they do the words hospital, school, or children, where the Palestinians untermenschen are concerned. There are no longer any safeguards within Israeli political culture today. No acts that are beyond the pale, no innocence on the other side, and that was under a Democrat in the White House. Meanwhile, what the Americans currently offer in way of hope is the possibility that Trump may be too busy destroying American institutions and going after that country's most vulnerable communities, such as trans people and non-white immigrants, to give Israel as much flexibility as Biden did. Then again, he appointed the Christian Zionist fanatic Mike Huckabee as his ambassador to Israel, a man who, like Biden's ambassador, rejects the very existence of Palestinians as a people. That is as good as it gets with the Americans today. So how can I be expected to feel anything other than dread in anticipation of more violence? On this very day, January 20th, 2025, one day after the official ceasefire in Gaza, the Americans are planning on inaugurating their most far-right government in living memory. An event described by a friend as not an inauguration, but a rally. Attending this rally are far-right leaders from around the world, from Zemmour in France to the AfD in Germany and Farage in the UK, among others. Even before the ceremony starts, we can already describe this moment as the most self-confident the far-right has been in the West since the peak of the Third Reich. The man being appointed commander-in-chief of the world's most destructive army ever is himself a convict who tried to overturn the US elections. Not only did the American legal system prove itself incapable, or unwilling rather, to punish its most overtly anti-democratic politician, but that same man was rewarded with 77,303,573 votes 4 years later. Netanyahu is, of course, also attending the Trump rally. He is not, however, far-right, not by Israeli standards in any case, The man who committed the genocide is not even Israel's most quote-unquote extreme politician, but merely a man who was willing to do it, because he could. He succeeded in destroying most of Gaza by dropping more bombs than were dropped on Dresden, Hamburg and London during World War II combined. Between October 7th and November 17, 2023, alone, the Israelis dropped, quote, nearly 600 highly destructive 2,000-pound bombs, end quote, by the American arms manufacturer General Dynamic and Ordnance Tactical System near most of Gaza's hospitals. In barely 2 months in 2023, what the Israelis did was already described as, quote, among the deadliest and most destructive in recent history, end quote. They then did that for 13 more months. The truth is that I am furious at this ceasefire. In many ways, Ben Gvir may be the only remaining honest man in this theater of lethal mediocrity. He resigned because of the ceasefire, because he believes Israel did not go far enough, was not violent enough, did not ethnically cleanse as many Palestinians as possible, and made the rest of them subservient to Israeli Jewish supremacy between the river and the sea. That is what Biden effectively made possible as well. That is what Netanyahu has always wanted, but neither Biden nor Netanyahu are willing to go the full distance. This does not mean that Netanyahu won't do so under Trump, and or that whoever comes after Netanyahu concludes that Smotrich was wrong when he said in August 2024 that, quote, no one in the world will allow us to starve 2 million people, even though it might be justified and moral in order to free the hostages, end quote. Smotrich said this before Israel started besieging and starving Palestinians in northern Gaza in October of that year. No one in the world stopped them. So I cannot mourn Gaza yet. What I can do, and I am genuinely trying to take it all in as much as I can, is to also take Palestinian joy seriously. Many are currently celebrating the ceasefire, as any one of us would. And this means that the Netanyahus and Bidens of this world, as the Huckabees and Ben Gvirs, have not been able to crush the Palestinian psyche. Whether they succeed in the end or not will likely be as much up to the rest of us as it is to Palestinians most directly impacted on the ground, because so much of the upcoming battles are going to happen outside of Israel-Palestine. Whether this means derailing the far right in Europe or diminishing the power of big tech, now even more so that the billionaires such as Musk, Zuckerberg and Bezos are fully on board the Trump train, there is a lot of work to do ahead of us. I will one day mourn Gaza, but not yet. Right now, I can only be angry, and I hope you all are too. Audios such as this one will be released in the near future as part of the Hauntologies podcast, which will be a premium-only podcast released for our Patreon subscribers. If you want to join our Patreon and support From the Periphery, which means supporting this podcast as well as all of the other podcasts that are published under this wide umbrella, you can go to patreon.com/fromtheperiphery and subscribe for as little as $5 a month, or even less so if you opt for the yearly subscription. Thank you all for listening.